Alright, I don't know if this has been a topic covered by so many people before, blah blah blah. I don't really care though. I gotta talk about it now. HD remakes. You either love them or you hate them. Now, a lot of people think HD remakes are dumb. They're like, why do you want to sell us an old game, which we already have, which we already bought? Why are you trying to rip off all these guys? But, you know, it may make a lot of sense, because what if these people haven't played these games? There's a lot of games like before, which released, like the old Resident Evil game, which came out. The first one. I'm not talking about the new, like Resident Evil 5 or 6, which are barely Resident Evil games anymore. I'm talking about the original Resident Evil. It's a hard game to get into, especially in this day and age, with all these cool-looking graphics and whatnot, you know? So, with that new remake which just came out, Resident Evil HD, it's like, what, $15, $20? Boom. It's so much fun to play that. I'd rather play that game than the original, unless you're going for nostalgia value and everything, but that's completely different. If you want an accessible game, I think it's smart to remaster your games like that. But then there comes a game like a game I absolutely adore. Let's say Tomb Raider, the 2013 one. I adore that game. I love it. But why do you need an HD, not even an HD remake, just like repackaging that game saying Definitive Edition on the PlayStation 4. I mean, sure, I kind of get maybe you didn't have a PS3 or 360, but there's so many other ways of getting that game, and how about not, why don't you just move on to the next one? It's kind of interesting though, because for Tomb Raider, there's that side of it, which is like, dude, the game almost looks the same, coming from PS3 to PS4, with slight differences, but nothing revolutionary or extraordinary. But now, when you have a game on PS4 which came out, the next Tomb Raider game is going to come out on Xbox One. It's going to be a timed exclusive probably, right? So that's one thing Microsoft did. Or they probably pushed Square Enix and those guys, whatever, to be like, hey, let's get this game out to the public. Let's make an HD, not even an HD remake. I keep saying that, but honestly, it's just the same game repackaged for Xbox One and PS4 form. And they probably did that to promote their next game, which is the Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, I believe. Yeah, that's the one. And that's interesting, because the only reason that the Tomb Raider Definitive Edition exists on the PS4 and Xbox One is just so they can promote their next game. And already Square Enix is already like, you know, they're always about their sales, like, oh, we didn't do that well, even though they did pretty well, so I don't get that. But let's talk about something else now. Let's talk about a game which I completely understand a remake for. Not a remake, a repackaging. Let's call it repackaging now. And that is The Last of Us. The Last of Us comes with the DLC as well, which is Left Behind. But the reason I understand why this game is having a repackaging is because on the PS3 it was the best experience I've had. Many agree it is the best experience. And a lot of people switched from having an Xbox to a PlayStation 4, and a lot of people bought the PlayStation 4. It's an incredibly amazingly selling console. So if you didn't get the chance to play that, a lot of people did buy The Last of Us Remastered, which comes with the DLC, an amazing multiplayer experience, blah blah blah. So it came with all of that. And when I say amazing, I mean it was pretty solid. So nothing revolutionary, but it was still pretty fun. But yeah, I understand that, because it's a game which was so well received by the public, by critics, and it's it's probably my favorite game of all time too. But I'm just saying, you know, it's a game I understand why there's a repackaging for. And if you did get the chance to play it on PS3, there may not be a reason for you to get it on PS4. But for the people who didn't, there's a whole lot of reason to do so. Now, DMC Definitive Edition also came out, which is the reboot of the Devil May Cry series. Now, this is another game I sort of understand where they're coming from, because, first of all, it's a reboot of the series. We want to get new fans into this. So just like the Tomb Raider series, you get the DMC in. But the thing which provides more backup for this being, like, you know, a logical reason for the repackaging is that they added all the DLC, as well as making it 1080p, 60 FPS, and what they also did is added in a lock-in system to lock onto your targets, which the original game did not have. Now, if you do shit like this, I would love for, like, more repackaging or whatever you want to call it, because you're improving your game. And that's one key thing which a lot of people won't do. They're not going to improve their game. Developers just want to get the game out. They want to get more money before maybe get funding for the new game. And, you know, whatever. Just depends on what you're into. So it's either you really do love it or hate it. And for me, I think it really varies on what the type of game it is, what like features they're going to add. Now let's take Grim Fandango Remastered. This came out this year, and it's a game I never played. And you know, I'm going to be honest with you, I never had any interest in playing the game, and I will now because I was reading about it. It's a very well received game. It was a classic back in the day, and I wasn't even playing video games when this came out. I'm going to be honest, I'm 17 years old, whatever. So Grim Fandango Remastered is like the type of game which will bring classics. Even though this wasn't like remade or anything like Resident Evil HD, this is a game which is gonna create something which is gonna cause more new gamers to get into these types of games, and that's cool because it's a classic, and this makes it more accessible to new gamers. So that's why I think that Grim Fandango Remastered and a bunch of other games like this, especially with the Resident Evil HD game as well, brings classic games to mainstream audiences, especially the newer gamers. So I think if you do that, that's another logical reason for you to remaster, remake, or repackage your games. Sleeping Dogs is another game which comes with all the DLC in the Definitive Edition. It's a game I also bought because I like it a lot. And I bought the Definitive Edition because it was on sale. But it's a game I don't really understand why it's repackaged, because the graphics really aren't that significantly better. It does really look really good once again at nighttime in that game, but it's a game which I don't really understand why. Now, the Halo Master Chief Collection is a very cool addition because it comes with all the games in the series. So if you came from PlayStation to Xbox, that's a very good way for you to experience those games as well. And sure, the multiplayer didn't work for all of them in the beginning, but hey, it comes with all the games. I think it's an amazing deal. I'm more of a PlayStation guy myself, but the Halo Master Chief Collection is an amazing deal, and it's just a very cool thing for you to do, especially if you didn't get to play those games in the past. So yeah, and for upcoming games, God of War 3 is releasing on PlayStation 4, and I don't get that at all. I love God of War 3, but come on, $40 for that one game? I don't know if that's worth it, especially if you can get the entire saga of games on the PlayStation 3, which, you know, they were already remastered, being God of War 1, 2, and the 2 PSP titles. They were already remastered before, so getting the single God of War 3 on the PlayStation 4, I'm sure it's going to look amazing, it's still going to play amazing, but come on, you know, $40 for that? Not really worth it, in my opinion. Now, the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection is another collection I think is going to be absolutely worth it, because it is, once again, for the people who didn't play the Uncharted games before, once they moved from Xbox to PS4, which is a ton of people, actually. It's worth it for them, because Uncharted is like the prime franchise for PlayStation at this point. And with Uncharted 4 coming, it's going to be it's a reasonable decision to make this collection. And plus, the box art is really cool, and it says the Nathan Drake collection, so are they hinting something? Is he gonna die? I don't know. Well, that's a whole nother story, but I just think that's another good collection, because the Uncharted games, especially Uncharted 3, are some of the best looking games to date. So playing those at 60 FPS will be absolutely glorious, because there's a lot you can improve on the games in terms of like transferring it from the 30 FPS to the 60 FPS, and if games do that as well, I think that's cool. And, one thing I missed out on, why didn't I talk about this? Grand Theft Auto 5, that's a huge game. Well, of course, it's a huge game. It made like $800 million in 3 days when it originally came out, and now they have a ton of money. Good job, Rockstar. It's a great game. But taking that from the PS3, Xbox 360 era to the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 era, it was interesting because they did add a bunch of new features. And as much as I felt like the features were great, including the first-person mode and the bunch of variety of new weapons, I don't think the game really stood out until it came to the PC. And from the PC, it's actually like a whole nother experience. So for that, that's a whole nother story. And I just think the game's great, every single installment, but it gives the opportunity to players. And Grand Theft Auto is the type of game which like has such a player base that people are going to get it on every single console they own. I own it on PS3, on PS4, and on PC. Even though like I was gifted the game on PS4, it's just a game that people would buy over and over again because of its massive like content. People getting online, people getting on different systems. It's just the type of game like that. But that's a whole nother story. And now, Gears of War is also getting remastered on, PC and Xbox. And this is the first game, which is arguably the worst one, so it's kind of interesting to see how that turns out. But it is a complete remake. And that is going to be interesting to see, because just like Resident Evil HD, I want to see more games, classic games, remade like this. And I think that is the biggest thing that we can do about games, which you want to remake, not repackage, but remake. And that's what I want to see, like more classics and all that being remade, brand new, for newer gamers to play. And don't just bullshit and like put random games. Let's do actual classic games. I can't really think of any on the top of my head, but Resident Evil was a great one. Grim Fandango, I'd love to see that game actually not just an HD remaster, but actually remake that game. That would be so cool. You know, do that with the Jak and Daxter series, the Sly Cooper series if you have to. I know there's HD collections on PlayStation 3, but seeing those games remade would be beautiful. The Ratchet & Clank game, which is coming out on PS4, they're adding a shit ton of new features to that game, a shit ton of new bosses. It's going to be awesome, and I'm so excited for that, because it's an actual remake and not just an HD remaster. And though that's a big difference between the two, and I think people need to understand that. Final Fantasy VII is going to be remade. I hope that's coming out this year. I believe it is. And I really just want to see those types of games. So, yeah, guys, that's my little commentary on HD remakes, remasters, repackagings, whatever you want to say. Hope you guys enjoyed it. That was a little rant. But, yeah, thanks for watching, guys. This was a Haptic Shot. If you enjoyed it, give it a like. If you hated me, leave a comment about how much you hate me. You know, all that good stuff. So, I'll see you guys later.